In the days when Israel had no king, the people struggled in a cycle of fear and repentance. For 7 long years, the Midianites swept across the land like a plague, burning fields, stealing livestock, leaving Israel in hunger and despair. The people cried out to the Lord, and God looked upon a man whose name would soon echo through generations, Gideon, son of Joash. But Gideon did not see a warrior when he looked at himself. He saw weakness. He saw fear. He wondered why God had allowed such suffering, and why he, of all people, had been called. Yet the story of God's deliverance often begins in the quiet places, where a trembling heart meets a divine purpose. And so we find Gideon, not on a battlefield, not standing tall as a warrior, but hunched low inside a winepress, hidden deep in the shadow of fear. In the stillness of that hidden, a presence stood before him, the angel of the Lord. With a voice that carried both authority and tenderness, he said,
"Gideon, mighty warrior, the Lord is with you."
The words hit Gideon like thunder.
Me? I am the least in my family. Our family is the weakest.
Gideon questioned, "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened?"
Go in this might of yours and save Israel. Have I not sent you?
But even after the angel of the Lord spoke to Gideon, his heart was still unsure. That night, Gideon stepped quietly outside with a piece of wool. He placed it carefully on the ground, and Gideon said to God,
If you are truly sending me to save Israel, then let the wool be wet with dew in the morning, while all the ground around it stays dry.
It was his way of asking God for a sign he could not deny. When morning came, Gideon hurried out to the place, and just as he had asked, the wool was soaked with water, but the ground around it was completely dry. God had answered. Yet Gideon still felt a trembling inside, so he asked God again, humbly, not wanting to anger him. This time he said,
Lord, let the wool stay dry, and let the ground around it be covered with dew.
And once again, God answered. The ground was wet with dew, but the wool remained perfectly dry. God was patient with Gideon's fear, and he strengthened his heart. To strengthen Gideon's heart, the Lord gave him a small assignment.
Tear down the altar of Baal.
By night, shaking but obedient, Gideon destroyed the idol, the altar of Baal, and for the first time, courage found its place in his chest.
Who did this? Who broke our idol? They soon found it was Gideon. Bring Gideon out of his hiding. He deserves to be punished. Not for right. If Baal is a god, let him defend himself. Do not harm my son.
But the enemy did not sleep. The Midianites, Amalekites, and the people of the east gathered like locusts, their camels without number. Their warriors stretched across the valley like a sea of spears. Fear swept across Israel, but the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew the trumpet to gather the tribes. 32,000 Israelites answered the call. Strong men, weak men, farmers, shepherds, all trembling, yet willing. God's voice breaks through the tension.
The people are too many for me to give Midian into their hands.
Gideon announced, "Whoever is afraid, let him return home." 22,000 men walked away. Only 10,000 remained. But God spoke again.
The people are still too many.
Down to the river they went. There, God separated the soldiers by how they drank water. Some knelt down and buried their faces in the stream to drink. Others scooped the water with their hands and stayed alert as they drank. God told Gideon to keep only the ones who drank with their hands, the alert ones. And when the final count was done, only 300 men remained. Gideon looked around in shock. From thousands, now just 300 men stood with him, waiting for his command.
Gideon's heart pounded with fear, yet God whispered courage. Gideon swallowed hard as fear climbed up his chest, but in the quiet of the night, God spoke to him again. Gideon, if you are still afraid, go down to the Midianite camp. Listen to what the soldiers are saying. So Gideon crept through the darkness, and from behind a tent, he heard 2 Midianite soldiers talking. One said, "I had a dream. A loaf of bread rolled into our camp and knocked our tent down." The other replied, "That can only mean one thing. God has given Gideon victory over us." Hearing this, Gideon's fear melted away. God had already gone before him. At midnight, with nothing but trumpets, empty jars, and blazing torches hidden inside, Gideon and his 300 descended toward the enemy camp. At Gideon's signal, they shattered the jars, lifted their torches high, and blew the trumpets with all their strength. All soldiers shouting, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon! The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!" Warm, victorious, and so, from a trembling man in a winepress, God raised a deliverer. Gideon learned what every believer must learn. When God is with you, even your weakness becomes a weapon. This is the story of Gideon, a reminder that courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of God in the middle of it.